What's up, guys? Julia here with Alpha Elite Wealth, and lately it seems like everyone is talking about cryptocurrencies, but it can be a bit overwhelming to understand. So, in this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of how cryptocurrency actually works, but in order to do that, we're going to have to go way back to a time when currency wasn't even a thing. So, let's get started. All right, so when society was in its early stages, there was no such thing as money. The only way to buy something off of someone else was to go up to them and be like, oh, I really like your cow and I'll trade you my dog for it. Even though in reality, that would never happen because my dogs are like my children. But that's beside the point. The issue with this type of system is that even though you might be perfectly happy to give up your cow, you just might not want a dog. So that trade's never going to happen. That's where currency came in. Coins, which because they were made of precious materials like gold and silver, everyone just accepted that they were worth something. So all of a sudden in a trade, it doesn't matter if you don't want my dog. As long as I have coins, we can still trade for your cow, even if you have no use at all for the silver because it's a precious material. You have that reassurance that you can take that coin and give it to someone else and trade for something that you do want. Pretty convenient, right? Then this evolved even more as banks became established and governments had control. We realized that as long as there was trust in the system, we could move away from needing to carry blocks of precious metal towards something even more convenient, which is paper money. It does the same thing, but now the money doesn't have value because it's made of pure silver. It just has value because the government says it has value. Take a $20 bill in the United States, for example. The government says that this piece of paper is worth $20 and can be used to purchase goods and services. Really, it's just like having a kind of proof that you own a certain amount of money. But as technology's improved, we found even more convenient ways of storing and trading our belongings. More people than ever are buying things online and using credit cards. And really, when you're at this stage of the game, we don't really see our money anymore. It's not about coins or dogs or cows. It's just an entry on a spreadsheet. For example, when I buy something on Amazon that costs $20, which is pretty much daily, don't judge, all that is happening is that my bank adds an entry in my spreadsheet that says Julia now has $20 less, and then Amazon Bank adds an entry that says they have $20 more. All right, so you're probably thinking to yourself, why such a long introduction to explain cryptocurrency? And that is to give you a sort of context on where cryptocurrency sits. Cryptocurrency is seen by many people as the most convenient error of exchange ever. The way to think about cryptocurrency is that it's 100% virtual. I know the logo for Bitcoin kind of looks like a physical coin, but there's no silver, there's no paper. It really is just the transfer of digital assets, which is a pretty cool concept. It's exactly the same thing as literally just running spreadsheets of who's paid what to who, but instead of multiple banks keeping their own separate records, with crypto, there is just one enormous spreadsheet of every transaction made using that currency, and this is called a ledger. I know we all love a good spreadsheet, but really, what's all the fuss about, and why is everyone going crypto crazy? There are some distinct advantages to a currency system like this one. It's decentralized, which means that while every transaction of a given currency is all recorded on the same ledger, there are multiple copies of that ledger, and anyone who is a part of the network has one. You may have heard of cryptocurrency mining or Bitcoin mining. Well, all that really is someone who set up a computer to crunch through transactions on their copy of this ledger. There are already about 1 million Bitcoin miners around the world, and Bitcoin is just one type of cryptocurrency. The reason they're doing this is because if you dedicate your computer's power to mining, say, Bitcoin, then you will earn some Bitcoin as compensation. So the result of this is that if I go into a store and spend 5 Bitcoins on something, instead of just checking with one bank's records, the shop instead checks with every single computer on this network if I have enough, and assuming I do, each computer will give the go-ahead, and every single one will update their records independently. Because you end up having this many copies of exactly the same ledger, it becomes very easy to tell if anyone's trying anything suspicious. For example, if I try to hack into someone's computer that's on the network and give myself more money by adjusting some figures on their copy of the ledger, it's not going to go through. The system will realize that 99.9% of the copies on the ledger are saying one thing, but one of them is saying something else, so it must have been tampered with. There is a very clear organization to the system, and I think that's what people believe in because they see the future as open, traceable transactions, much more so than having bits of a record over here, maybe some over here. I know it seems complex at this point, but as we go through this, I think you'll realize that for a lot of people, in a way, it's simpler. There are plenty of areas of the world that have internet access, which is all you need for crypto, but don't have access to traditional banks, which require a lot of paperwork and documentation. I think I've kind of implied this already, but the main perk of crypto is that you don't need banks anymore because everything is stored by the people on this ledger. You can make international payments almost instantly instead of taking half a day with low spending limits. Plus, you don't need to worry about exchange rates, you don't need to worry about interest rates, and even transaction fees are close to zero for some cryptocurrencies. The reason that cryptocurrencies are called cryptocurrencies is because they're secured by cryptography. And one example of this, which a lot of major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin use, is blockchain. Now, people often get this confused. Blockchain is not Bitcoin. Blockchain is not a currency itself. Blockchain is just a secure type of ledger. So you know that big spreadsheet everyone has and is recording transactions on? Blockchain is just a way of organizing it into blocks. So every time I pay for something with Bitcoin, that transaction is recorded as a block. Each block contains transaction data like who's paid who and how much. The hash, which is a unique identifier, and the hash of the previous block in the sequence or the last transaction that was recorded, and the pivot on which the system rests, records that something in the block is changed and that block's hash will change. You might be starting to see where this is going because each block also contains the data of the previous block. If the hash of the block changes, then the next block will no longer have a matching hash with it, and so every subsequent log after that one becomes invalid. So if you combine this with what we talked about earlier, this whole idea of millions of different users all having their own copy of the blockchain ledger, even if I wanted to fraudulently create a transaction that, say, paid me money, I'd have to not just tamper with a block and every single block after it, but I'd also have to do this on at least 500,000 computers around the world so that the majority of computers in the system are also consistent with the one I've tampered with, which is probably not going to happen. Whereas just hacking into someone's dollar account and sending myself money, that does happen, and sometimes it's as simple as just literally guessing someone's PIN number. There's a massive jump between that and trying to hack into 500,000 correlated computers all at once. So cryptocurrencies have their issues, which I'll get to in a minute, but hopefully you can see why people are excited about them, and that brings me to investments. You've probably heard of people putting money into cryptocurrencies, and all that really means is that they're exchanging normal currencies like dollars for cryptos like Bitcoin. They're hoping that those cryptocurrencies become the next big thing and therefore suddenly shoot up in value, at which point they can either spend them or just exchange them back for more dollars than they bought them for. There's actually a term for cryptocurrencies that skyrocket like this, and that is going to the moon. The one decision that one would have to make at this point is which cryptocurrency, because we talked a lot about Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is just one of over 4,000 different cryptos, and each of them have their own different properties, which I'm not going to get into right now. I don't know about you, but I don't have all day, so all I can say is to do your research. As promised, I'll be covering some of the downfalls to cryptocurrency, so let's get into it. One of the main ones is exactly this. The reason I think a lot of people don't take crypto seriously is its volatility. Because these currencies are so new and they're completely digital, unlike, say, the market for gold, no one really knows what they should be worth. So you find that crypto prices are quite heavily speculative and they're tied to news cycles like when there's a glowing article about them, their prices spiral upwards, and then when Elon Musk posts a tweet about them that puts them down, the prices go way down. Another downfall is the fact that they're not really accepted as a form of payment in most places. They can also be an environmental concern. The whole reason why a lot of these cryptos are so secure is because of this concept of transactions being verified multiple times by multiple computers. So I think it's a fair criticism that in itself creates a fundamental inefficiency. That much computing power requires a lot of electricity. There's also a pretty strong sentiment that because there's no real policing or regulation on crypto right now, it's like the perfect currency for criminals. But to be honest, I think the data speaks for itself on that one. 0.3% of crypto transactions are criminal, and up to 5% of normal cash transactions are criminal. And I think that's because there's a bit of a misconception that currencies like Bitcoin are anonymous. They're actually not. even though your actual details aren't visible to everyone, your public key or your unique identifier will be permanently baked into the blockchain upon making transactions with it. So cash is just a better currency for most types of criminal activity because by its nature, it's untraceable. There's also just some straight up off the wall things that have come about because of crypto. For example, you may have heard of an NFT or a non-fungible token. If you haven't, you might want to listen up for this one. I don't want to call it stupid, but it's definitely a bit strange. So, you know how you can go into an art gallery and you can pay to own a painting? Well, now, thanks to blockchain, you can pay just to have digital ownership over something. So it doesn't stop anyone from using or sharing that thing, but all it means is that you're the owner of the original and they'd all be sharing copies of it, even if for most intensive purposes, they look and behave identically. A lot of these entities are literally just JPEG images. And I think the reason some people find this stupid and kind of funny is that there's a distinct difference between buying an NFT and buying the rights of something. So if you buy the rights over something, that's a very legitimate purchase because you can create merch or sell licenses, but with an NFT, you can't. The original owner still has the reproduction rights over that piece. All that's really happening is that you're using the blockchain to prove that you have some ownership over that asset. But clearly just being able to say that has some value because an NFT of a Gucci ghost sold for $3,600. And the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, sold his first ever tweet as an NFT for $2.9 million. I know some of this may sound a bit confusing and maybe a bit ridiculous, but there have been many people who have become millionaires and billionaires from cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. You may have also heard of Dogecoin, which is a coin that was literally created as a joke, and people started sharing it on social media and putting a bit of money into it because they thought it was funny. But that created a higher demand and propelled its value to the point where we now have people who have become millionaires because they bought this coin when it was cheap. This is also something we have recently started to see happening with the Shiba Inu coin, which is also known as the Dogecoin killer. All right, I know I threw a lot of information at you, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope this video gave you a bit more understanding about cryptocurrencies so that you can decide if this is something you'd like to put some money into. I'd love to know your thoughts on cryptocurrency, so please be sure to comment and share your opinion below. Also, if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe button so you get notifications anytime I upload a new video. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.